I've been driving nights for almost 5 years now. Small towns like mine don't have much excitement after dark. Just empty streets. A few tired factory workers heading home. Maybe the odd drunk stumbling out of a dive bar. Most nights are easy. Last Thursday wasn't. Started like usual. I was sitting in my cab at the gas station on the edge of town, sipping lukewarm coffee and half listening to some oldies station on the radio. Around 1:50 a.m., the dispatch buzzed through. Pickup request, Wren Road. I stared at the screen, frowning. Wren Road? It wasn't even supposed to exist anymore. They tore it up years ago, after half the street sank into the marshlands. No one lived out there. No one even went out there. Not unless you wanted to get stuck or swallowed up by the mud. I almost declined the ride. But curiosity, and the thought of a fat tip, got the better of me. The fog was thick as soup when I pulled on to what was left of Wren Road. The pavement ended after a few meters, crumbling into mud and broken asphalt. I eased the car forward, tires crunching softly. That's when I saw her. A girl standing by the edge of the treeline. She couldn't have been more than 16, 17 maybe, wearing an old-fashioned white dress that hung limp around her ankles, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her hair was matted and wild, clinging to her face. She wasn't waving. She wasn't even looking at me. She just stood there, head bowed. I rolled the window down partway. "You call for a ride?" I asked, voice cracking slightly. No answer. Just when I was about to back up and leave, she lifted her head slowly. Her eyes, what I could see of them, looked wrong. Empty. Like something looking through me. She stepped forward and got in the back seat without a word. The smell hit me immediately. Not the wet dog smell you expect from someone out in the rain. This was deeper. Earthier. Like grave dirt and standing water. "Where you headed?" I asked, forcing a smile. She didn't respond. Just stared straight ahead. Hands clenched in her lap so tightly that her knuckles were white. I didn't know what else to do, so I started driving, letting her sit in silence. The road behind us disappeared into the fog. Ahead, the trees closed in. The radio fizzled into static, then died completely. The GPS on my phone spun in circles. Every so often, the girl would tap the window lightly with one finger. A slow, steady rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound slicing into the silence like a needle. I glanced into the rearview mirror once. Only once. And immediately wished I hadn't. Her reflection wasn't right. It flickered like a bad signal on an old TV. For a second, her mouth opened impossibly wide, and the skin on her face seemed to ripple, sag, almost melting. I blinked hard, looked back at the road. Nope, no more mirrors. We drove for what felt like hours, even though the town limits were only a few miles back. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. "Stop here." Her voice was like the crunch of dead leaves underfoot, dry, brittle, wrong. I slammed the brakes without thinking. The car skidded slightly on the damp dirt. We were at a clearing. An old, sunken house stood half-collapsed in the middle, rotting away into the swamp. The porch sagged inward. The windows were black and empty. The girl opened the door and stepped out. Before I could say anything, ask if she was okay, if she needed help, she turned and looked at me. For the first time, her mouth twitched into a sick parody of a smile. "You'll come back for the others." The door slammed shut behind her, and she disappeared into the mist. I sat there, heart hammering, too scared to move. When I finally worked up the nerve to leave, my tires spun and fought the mud for what felt like an eternity. It was almost dawn by the time I rolled back into town. When I checked my phone, my ride log showed nothing. No pickup, no fare. But there was a new message, waiting in my inbox. 1 delivered, 3 more to go. I quit the night shift that morning. But now, sometimes, especially when it's foggy, I get a ping from dispatch. No name, no location, just a blank request. And when I ignore it, my tires start to sink a little lower into the pavement. The air inside the car gets colder, and I hear it, soft and steady. Tap, 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 right behind my ear. I didn't drive for almost a week after that night. Couldn't. Every time I even thought about getting behind the wheel, I felt that tap 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 in the back of my mind, like ghost fingers drumming against my skull. But bills don't pay themselves. And part of me, the stubborn, foolish part, kept whispering that maybe it had all been a bad dream. Stress. Sleep deprivation. So the following Friday, I accepted a daytime shift. Safe, right? Sunlight, busy streets, normal people. The day passed without anything weird. I was starting to think I was in the clear. Then, around 5 p.m., just as the sun dipped low and the sky turned a bruised shade of purple, I got a notification on my phone. Mandatory pickup. No address, just a set of GPS coordinates. Somewhere near the marshes. I froze. I hadn't opted in for night calls. I hadn't even accepted the ride. But somehow the system was already directing me there. The screen locked up. No exit. No back button. And then my car, my own damn car, started by itself. The engine roared to life. The locks clicked shut. I sat there, heart hammering, as the steering wheel jerked slightly to the left, like something was guiding it, and the car rolled forward. I tried everything. Braking, shutting off the ignition, yanking the keys out. Nothing worked. It was like I wasn't the driver anymore. As the last sliver of sun disappeared, the fog rolled back in, thicker than I'd ever seen it. The town behind me faded into white. Ahead, only the marshes waited. And her, the girl from Wren Road. She stood in the middle of the path, her white dress even dirtier now, black with mud up to her knees. But she wasn't alone. Beside her, 3 more figures stood in the mist. A man in a shredded suit, his head hanging unnaturally to one side. A woman clutching a sodden handbag, her feet bare and torn. And a boy no older than 10, his eyes wide and unblinking. They stared at me as I rolled to a stop. The girl smiled that broken smile again. She lifted her hand and pointed toward the back seat. Obedient, like a puppet on strings, I unlocked the doors. One by one they climbed inside. No words, no breathing, just the squelch of wet clothes and the heavy, cloying stench of decay. The car sagged under their weight, even though in the mirror, I saw nothing. No reflections. Only the impression of where they sat, dark stains blooming across the seats. Where are we going? I croaked, my throat dry as sandpaper. The girl leaned forward, her icy breath frosting the back of my neck. Home, she whispered. The car lurched forward again, tires slipping in the muck. I drove blindly into the fog, the world shrinking down to the small, suffocating bubble of my headlights. Trees loomed and twisted at the edges of the road. The radio crackled to life, but it wasn't music. It was a low, gurgling sound, like someone drowning, like someone trying to scream through a mouthful of mud. The boy started humming, a soft, broken tune that set every hair on my body standing on end. I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles bone white. After what felt like an eternity, the trees parted. We reached a clearing, not the same one as before. This was deeper in the swamp, where the water seeped up through the ground and the air smelled like death. A house stood there, or what used to be one, just a skeleton of wood and rot now, slumped like a dying animal. The passengers climbed out without a word. The boy was last. He turned and looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment, I swear I saw pity in his dead eyes. Then he followed the others into the ruins. I slammed the car into reverse, heart thudding against my ribs, desperate to get away. But just as I backed up, the girl reappeared, standing directly behind the car, smiling, waiting. I jammed the gear shift into drive and tore off into the night, not daring to look back. It was almost dawn when I reached town. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. 3 delivered. 1 remains. Underneath it, a new set of coordinates. Closer this time. Not in the marshes. In town. I told myself I could ignore it. Turn off the phone. Smash the damn thing. But deep down I knew better. Because when I pulled into my driveway, exhausted, broken, ready to crawl into bed and pretend none of it had happened, I saw it. A shape, sitting patiently in the back seat. Waiting. Dripping water onto the leather. When I blinked, It was gone. But the seat was still wet. And in the condensation on the inside of my rear window, a message appeared, written by an unseen hand. Soon. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every creak of the house, every whisper of wind outside made my heart jump into my throat. I kept the lights on, sat on the couch clutching a kitchen knife like it would somehow protect me from something that wasn't even fully alive. By sunrise, my phone buzzed again. New message. Final pickup. No name. No address. Just one word beneath it. Home. My stomach twisted. Home? I glanced around my living room, half expecting to see her. The girl, standing in the corner, smiling that broken, rotten smile. But there was nothing. Not yet. I tried to tell myself to leave, pack a bag, drive until the car gave out, disappear. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. I was tied to this now. No matter where I went, she'd find me. And worse, so would the others. At around 7 a.m., I gathered enough courage to go outside. My car sat in the driveway, innocent under the gray morning light. But when I opened the door, a wave of cold, wet air rolled out. The back seat was soaked through, the leather wrinkled and dark. On the seat itself something rested, something small and pale. I leaned in cautiously. It was a photograph. An old, black and white Polaroid. My heart seized up when I saw what it showed. Me, sitting behind the wheel, grinning like a fool. But not the real me. My eyes in the photo were wrong, glazed over and empty. My mouth stretched too wide, too stiff. And standing behind me, the girl, the man in the suit, the woman with the handbag, the boy, and one more shape, a blur still forming, still waiting. I dropped the photo like it had burned me. The car's engine coughed to life on its own. The dashboard lit up, even though I hadn't touched the key. I stumbled back, breathing hard, cold sweat dripping down my spine. Then, without warning, the car's headlights flickered. And the radio, dead for days, blared to life. Not music, not static, but a voice. Bring them home. The doors unlocked with a soft, inviting click. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I got in. The seat was freezing, soaking through my jeans in seconds. The car rolled forward, tires hissing on wet pavement, even though my feet never touched the pedals. We didn't head toward the marshes this time. We went into town, through the empty streets, past the shuttered shops and dark windows. And finally we stopped, in front of a house, my parents' house. I stared at it, stunned. They'd moved to Florida years ago. This place should have been empty, but the porch light was on. And in the window, silhouetted by pale, flickering light, stood a figure. A woman. Mom? No, couldn't be. My hands shook as I opened the door and stepped out. The fog pressed in, muffling sound, swallowing light. I made it halfway to the porch before I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. I turned. Nothing. Just my car idling quietly, exhaust curling into the mist. The front door creaked open by itself. Inside, the house was wrong. Not just dusty or abandoned. Wrong. The walls sagged inward. The wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips. Black mold crept like veins across the ceiling. The air smelled thick, like rot and something sweet and sickly underneath. The living room was full of broken furniture, shattered glass, and, I swear to God, faint footprints in the grime, like someone had been pacing back and forth. I followed the trail into the hallway. The old family photos still hung crooked on the walls, but the faces had changed. Where there should have been my parents, my sister, even me, there were strangers, blank, staring faces, some smiling too wide, some frowning, and behind all of them always stood the girl, closer each time, watching, waiting. I turned the corner into the kitchen, and there she was, not the girl, someone else, a man, older, hunched. His skin looked gray and sagging, like it had been soaking in water for too long. His eyes were yellowed and sunken, his mouth twitching in tiny spasms. He sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly ahead, waiting. He was the last one, the final passenger. Somehow I knew it. I took a step back. The man's head jerked toward me in a sharp, snapping motion. His mouth opened, too wide, unhinged, and a voice spilled out. Not his voice. Hers. Take him. The man stood slowly, bones cracking, and started toward me. I ran. Out the door. Down the steps. Back to the car. The man followed, shambling, dragging one leg behind him with a wet, sucking sound. I threw myself into the driver's seat. The back door opened on its own. The man climbed in. He sat stiffly, hands folded neatly on his lap, facing forward. Waiting. I didn't have to drive this time. The car moved on its own. The town disappeared behind us. The marshes rose up ahead. The water swallowed the road. The trees closed in. And finally we reached it. The house. Their home. It looked different now. Not broken. Whole. Lights burned in the windows. Smoke curled from the chimney. Figures stood on the porch. The girl, the boy, the woman, the man in the suit. All smiling those wide, broken smiles. The man beside me opened his door and stepped out. He joined the others. The girl turned her head, meeting my gaze one last time. "Thank you," she whispered. And then the world around me shattered. The house crumbled. The figures dissolved into mist. And I was alone, sitting in my car, in the middle of an empty swamp, at dawn. But when I tried to leave, my wheels spun uselessly. The road behind me was gone, swallowed by water and mud. And in my rearview mirror, a new face was starting to appear. Mine. The face in the rearview mirror wasn't mine. Not exactly. It looked like me. Same messy hair, same 5-day stubble. But there was something wrong. The skin was too pale, almost translucent. The eyes were clouded over, milky and distant. And the mouth was smiling. I wasn't smiling. I whipped around, heart hammering. The back seat was empty. Just the lingering dampness, the dark stain in the leather where all those things had sat. I looked back at the mirror. The face was still there, watching me, smiling. I squeezed my eyes shut, breathing fast, trying to block it all out. When I opened them again, the mirror was clean, empty, normal, or close enough. I floored the gas, but the tires only spun uselessly, kicking up muck and black water. The marsh had swallowed the road completely. Trees loomed like skeletal fingers. The fog pressed against the windows, smothering all sound. I was trapped. Panic gnawed at me. I slammed the door open and stumbled out into ankle-deep water. The air buzzed with insects. The ground squelched under my boots like it was breathing. I fought my way forward, wading through the swamp, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Somewhere in the distance, a faint light flickered. A lantern? I staggered toward it, slapping away branches and vines, heart thudding with desperate hope. The light grew closer. Through the mist, I could just make out a figure holding it. A man in an old-fashioned coat and hat, face shadowed. "Hey!" I called, waving wildly. "Hey! I need help!" The figure didn't move, didn't react, just held the lantern steady, waiting. As I splashed closer, the fog thinned just enough for me to see. The man wasn't standing on the ground. He was hanging, suspended by a noose, swaying gently from an invisible tree branch. The lantern dangled from one limp hand, the flame guttering in the wet air. I stumbled back, slipping in the muck, falling hard onto my side. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and for a second I lay there gasping, staring up at the roiling gray sky. When I looked back, the hanging man was gone. Only the faint glow of the lantern remained, bobbing away into the fog like a will-o'-the-wisp. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding, and turned back toward where I'd come from. But the car was gone. The swamp stretched endlessly in every direction. And worse, I wasn't alone anymore. Shapes moved in the mist. Dozens of them, tall and hunched, small and limping, dragging themselves across the waterlogged earth. I spun in a slow circle, my pulse roaring in my ears. No faces, just silhouettes, just the slosh of feet in the mud. Closer, closer. My legs finally remembered how to work. I ran. No direction, no plan, just pure blind terror. Branches tore at my clothes. Mud sucked at my boots. I could feel them behind me, not chasing exactly, just following. Steady, patient. They knew I couldn't outrun them. I stumbled into a clearing and froze. Another house. No, not a house. My house. Somehow, impossibly, standing here in the middle of the swamp, exactly as I had left it that morning. Lights burning in the windows. Front door ajar. Welcoming. Mocking. I didn't want to go inside. Every fiber of my being screamed not to. But the shapes were closing in behind me, hemming me in, herding me toward it like cattle toward the slaughterhouse. I staggered up the front steps. The wood was soft and rotting under my weight. The door creaked wider as I approached. Inside, the house looked wrong, even worse than before. The walls pulsed like living things. The ceiling sagged. Mold crawled across every surface, twisting into strange, runic shapes. And in the center of the living room, standing side by side, were the passengers. The girl, the man in the suit, the woman with the handbag, the boy, and the old man from the kitchen. They watched me silently, faces slack and smiling, waiting. Behind them, a huge mirror hung from the wall. It hadn't been there before. The glass rippled like water, distorting my reflection. And there, standing just behind me in the reflection, was the figure from the back seat. The pale, smiling version of me. It lifted a hand and beckoned. Slowly, the passengers turned and began walking toward the mirror. One by one, they passed through the glass as if it was a doorway, vanishing into whatever lay beyond. And when they were gone, only I remained. Me, and the thing that wore my face. I stepped closer to the glass, its smile widening. I stumbled back, but there was nowhere to run. The walls pulsed. The floorboards buckled. The house seemed to be folding in on itself, dragging me toward the mirror. I dug my heels in, fighting against the pull. But it was too strong. The mirror loomed larger and larger until it filled my whole world. And then the reflection reached out, its hand bursting through the glass and grabbed my wrist. It was cold, so cold it burned. I screamed, fought, but the hand tightened, yanking me forward. The last thing I saw before I was dragged into the mirror was my car, sitting innocently outside the house, engine idling, waiting. And sitting in the driver's seat was me, the smiling version, the one who had taken my place. The door slammed shut behind me. Darkness swallowed me whole. And now, I ride with them, the passengers, every night, waiting for the next driver to pick me up, waiting for someone else to trade places. Because the girl on Wren Road, she was only the beginning. The swamp is hungry, and it's always looking for more. First, there was nothing. No light, no sound. Just a cold, endless dark that wrapped around me like wet burlap. I don't know how long I drifted there, minutes, hours, years. Time didn't matter. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't thinking. I just was. And then, faintly, I felt it. Movement. A distant rumble. Like the purr of an engine. A low, steady hum through the blackness. Something was coming. I tried to turn my head, to look, but I had no body. No arms, no legs. Only the vague sensation of floating, like a discarded balloon tangled in a dead tree. Then a pinprick of light, far away, getting closer, faster. It was a car, my car. Headlights cutting twin beams through the darkness, growing larger, brighter, until they swallowed everything. And suddenly, I was sitting in the back seat. Not driving, not moving, just sitting. The leather was slick and freezing beneath me. The air reeked of swamp water and mildew. I looked down at my hands. They weren't mine. Thin, gray. Fingers curled into stiff claws. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was filled with something thick and slimy. Outside the window, trees whipped past. Black skeletal things clawing at the foggy sky. The driver didn't look back. Didn't say a word. But I knew. It was him. The thing that had taken my face. He was real now. Alive. And I was trapped here. Just another passenger. Another soul for the swamp. We drove on through a landscape that made no sense. Endless woods, broken highways, Empty towns with flickering lights and windows that had no glass. Sometimes I saw things moving in the trees. Sometimes, when we passed a street lamp or a crumbling gas station, I caught glimpses of other cars. Old and rusted, abandoned mid-turn, headlights still on. And sometimes, just sometimes, I saw other faces staring out from their own cars. Pale faces, dead faces, passengers, like me, all trapped, all waiting. After a while, the car slowed, pulled up to the side of a lonely, cracked road. Waiting for a new fare. The driver tapped the meter with one crooked finger. It flashed available in sickly green letters. Minutes dragged by. Then movement. Through the fog, a figure emerged. A woman, mid-30s, messy hair, jacket pulled tight against the damp. She hesitated at the curb, peering at the car with suspicion. Smart. Too smart. I wanted to shout, to warn her, to do something. But my body was frozen in place, paralyzed by the swamp's curse. The driver rolled down the window, offered a smile. A normal one. Friendly. Harmless. The woman frowned, took a step back. For one blessed moment, I thought she might turn and walk away. But then the fog thickened behind her, and through it, faintly, I saw them. The passengers. The girl. The boy. The man in the suit. The woman with the handbag. The old man. All standing there in the mist, watching. Waiting. The woman shivered, glanced back, saw nothing, and made the worst mistake of her life. She climbed in. The door slammed shut with a final, hungry click. The car started moving again. Even though the driver's hands never touched the wheel, the woman sat stiffly, glancing around, unease written all over her face. And behind her, unseen, the shapes began to gather. The other passengers, fading in and out of the misted windows, grinning. Soon I knew it would happen again. The drive into nowhere. The fog. The swamp swallowing the road. The mirror. The trade. One soul for another. That was the rule. It was always the rule. And when it was done, when the woman realized too late what she'd agreed to, she'd be trapped here too. Just another ghost, riding the endless highways of the dead. Just like me. The swamp doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. It just keeps growing. Passenger after passenger. Mile after mile. Night after night. Forever. If you're ever out late, and a taxi pulls up through the mist, headlights flickering, windows darkened, and the driver doesn't say a word, don't get in. No matter how tired you are. No matter how lost you feel. Because once you're inside, you don't leave. Not really. You just become part of the road. Another reflection in the rearview mirror. Another damp imprint on the seat. Another passenger. Waiting. Next time you hear tires on a lonely road at night, don't look back. They're already stopping for you.